Okay, so the next step, our next challenge, is attaching the horizontal stabilizer on the back of the aircraft. Now for this we are going to need to turn to our sprues that have the wings and flying surfaces on them, and you can see here our nice colourful stripy horizontal stabilizer. That part is part Z6, so we'll just take that off the sprue, and we've also got the elevator that we need here. Once again, nice and stripy. Remove this from the sprue. One more to go. There we go. And take my glasses off. Let's start tidying this up. Take the tags off. This tag comes off right down there. And same on the elevator too. Go. They all look nice and smooth. There's not a lot of excess to be removed. So here we have our two horizontal stabilizer parts, Z6 and Z7. As you can see, both have the same graphics on either side and are pretty much symmetrical. The only difference is there is a slot in the elevator on one side and not the other, and this slot, as you'll see from one I made earlier, is for the control horn to sit in, and on the aircraft, looking from the underside, it sits on the right hand side, or it's on the port side when the aircraft's the right way up. So you can see how it all goes together there. So as we're looking at it here, this is going to form the underside of the part. Now we need to join these two parts together, but this part here, the elevator, needs to be articulated so it can go up and down and control the aircraft to some extent. So the first thing we need to do, and in your kit you'll find a bit of carbon fibre. It's a carbon fibre strip. It's 1 millimetre across by 0.4 millimetres deep, and that actually sits on the leading edge, or the front edge of the elevator itself, and we just attach that using a little bit of Yoo-hoo. So I'm going to go ahead and just apply a little strand of Yoo-hoo. Don't forget to take my glasses off so I can actually see what I'm doing. And here we go. So just little dabs, little bits of Yoo-hoo all the way down the edge. And of course this strip will actually do a number of things to this part. Firstly, it'll obviously give it some strength. The part doesn't have much material in the middle, so it'll make sure that it beefs that up, but also it will reduce twist. Because we've only got control horn on one side of the elevator, there is obviously the risk on the other side that you get a twist if the two parts of the elevator aren't actually secured properly. So this strip actually reduces that twist, means that you get a more positive control to the aircraft. So we've just put the strip onto the front of the part there. As you can see, I've got a little bit of an overhang. I can chop that off later just using a scalpel. And so we'll just let that settle on the front there. And the next phase is to add a hinge strengthener as well. Now on a lot of the Microaces kits we don't actually have this, but I thought it was important to have one on this particular kit because once again it provides strength, it creates a centering force as well. So we've got our part P8 here now. What we're going to do first is attach it to the underside of the elevator. The part itself has got a slot in it too. That corresponds to the slot on the elevator, so we need to line those up when we come to attach it. Once again, using a spot of Yoo-hoo paw, spread over the area that we want to attach. Just doing half of it at the moment, so I've just put it on the area that's going to come in contact with the elevator itself. So I'm going to put this on without letting the glue dry because I want a little bit of wiggle room. So we want to line the slot up, and obviously we want the hinge line to be just slightly in front of our carbon fibre strip that we put on a few seconds earlier. So there we go. Okay, and then we can leave that aside to dry, and the next step is to add the hinges so we can attach the whole thing fully. Now the hinges themselves, S3, S4, S5 and S6, they're all on the sticker pack, and each one of them should line up with the graphics that you have on the tail itself. So this is S3 going on. I'm going to put this on just here, line up with the graphics there, and the center of the hinge sticker is marked as well, so we're just going to put that shy of the edge of the horizontal stabilizer. So on to S4, and we're actually going to attach this because the graphic is on the corresponding side. We're going to actually attach this onto our elevator, and that central indicator in fact marks where we're going to attach it onto our elevator. So line that up and make sure that the center mark is just slightly over, there we go, slightly over the carbon fibre. So okay, I've got that a little bit wonky, so I'm just going to peel that back and just readjust there. So the idea now is to bring these two parts together, leaving a very small gap, about 0.5 millimetre or so between the two. But what we're going to do before we do that is just apply a little bit of glue to our central hinge, just there, so that when it comes into contact with the horizontal stabilizer, it'll all go down quite nicely, it'll stick in place. Save me trying to get glue under there when it's sitting, hovering a millimetre above the surface. So in fact what I'm going to do is just bring it into contact temporarily. He said, easier said than done. Just get a bit of glue on there and then bring it apart, let the glue dry a little, and then bring it together once that glue has had time to set. Okay, let's finish this part off. Now, a couple of things that we want to take note of when we're bringing it together. Firstly, that gap between the two parts is important, about 0.5 millimetre, as I said. And also, obviously, we want the parts to line up. It's a very simple tail arrangement, so each edge there and each edge there should fit flush with the edges on the other part too. And what I have forgotten to do is to take that little bit of carbon fibre off there, so I'll do that now. There we go. It came off the edge a little bit, but with that Yoo-hoo it'll settle back down again. Okay, here we go. So, a little bit of a gap and get that alignment correct. So we're aligned back and front. Looks like we've got about a 0.5 mil gap. Get that central part down, and then good, that's good. That's lovely. There we go. So let's make sure these hinges are stuck to the surface, and there we have our horizontal stabilizer and elevator. And as you can see, we've got a decent amount of movement on there, and that hinge is working well. So there's our horizontal stabilizer and elevator completed. All we need to do now is attach this to the rear of the fuselage. It sits with this little cutout area here sitting neatly around the slightly elevated part of the fuselage sidewalls, and then the little notch cut in the back of the horizontal stabilizer should line up with the center of the rear of the aircraft here. So I'm going to dry fit this, and what that allows me to do when all is set up is to also have a look at whether the horizontal stabilizer is actually sitting flat, and on mine that looks pretty good. As you can hopefully see just there, that looks pretty good. But if you do have a problem and you do need it is at a slight angle, then all you have to do is take your sander and sand the wall that's causing the elevator to sit up slightly to one side, and that'll help rotate it back to being horizontal on the fuselage itself. So once I'm happy, the other thing that you've got to be aware of is that the hinge line sits just over the rear of the fuselage there. Obviously, if it's sitting on the fuselage, then it won't be able to move down to any extent. So we need it to be over the rear of the fuselage there for freedom of movement. So right, to attach, we just need some glue, Yoo-hoo port as ever, and just apply it to the surfaces that the tail comes in contact with. So this once again is, we're going to apply the part, then remove it, let the glue dry to some extent, and then pop it back on. So here goes on the front there, sitting centrally. Then get our little notch in the back of the horizontal stabilizer to sit perfectly central with the fuselage. If I look down the notch there, I can see the tail, or the end of the fuselage there. So just position it centrally on there. Then, as I said, we'll remove it. We've got glue on both sides now. Get rid of the web and let that dry, and then we can pop our horizontal stabilizer onto the fuselage, and there it shall sit. Obviously we want to be nice and careful now, because this is going to grab. So there we are. Just check alignment. All looks good. There we go. We've got our slot on the right side, and there we go. Right, next phase, in fact, is not putting on the vertical stabilizer and rudder. The next phase is to actually go for the wing. So we're going to put this to one side now, and we're going to concentrate on the structure, the main structure that makes this thing fly.